Welcome to the 14th episode of Star 80, 80 Gowns, 80 Dolls, and 80 Years. And of course, this is a celebration of all things Diana Ross. Now, I can't take it how excited I am that George Solomon, an entertainer, a overall storied producer that recreates and remasters lost or forgotten albums from the Motown vault and repurposes them not only for like years, it's like decades. And many Diana Ross and the Supremes fans are thankful to you for what you've done in giving us more, more, and more from the vault. So, George, tell us about yourself. And, in my brain, I see a picture of you at 11 with Riding High by Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, with, of course, Martha with a hat, and you're in the middle. And I think there's there's a Diana Ross and Supremes album next to you. I think it's Live at Talk of the Town, but I just remember you smiling like I smiled when my parents gave me for Christmas one year Diana and Marvin and Touch Me in the Morning. And of course, it all leads to you because you were the person that repurposed those LPs with the originally released on, June 19th, 1973, or December 11th, 1973. Go, George, go.
Well, first of all, hi Timmy. Thank you for having me here. It's so nice to see you. I don't get to see you very often, but you're right. That I remember that. I just came across that image recently with me sitting with the albums. I've got a lot of those. I was probably not. I thought I was unique at the time, but there are probably many kids who felt the way I did at that time. But I was getting it firsthand. I saw the Supremes at Dick Clark's Caravan of Stars when "Where Did Our Love Go" was their new single. So that goes back quite a ways. I was a big fan. I was 5 years old and I was a big fan of the Shirelles. And I begged my father to take me because the Shirelles were like the closing act. And the Supremes, I knew Love Light and "Where Did Our Love Go." I did because they played them in Pittsburgh, where I grew up.
I was gonna say you grew
So
up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and
yeah,
you felt unique growing up, thinking you were the only Supremes fanatic. And then, of course, through all things Supremes and Diana Ross, you were able to build a storied career and reach for the stars and the dreams. And I need to remind people that you were on the Motown Review, which was a summer replacement television special series with Smokey Robinson, and you were in all the skits. And I remember that because instead of reading The Good Earth in ninth grade, I was focused on the credits. And you were also at Motown Returns to the Apollo.
yeah. Well, I could tell you in a nutshell, you know, I believed so much that I was going to grow up and be part of this. And Andy mentioned seeing me in a show called Dream Street in Las Vegas. Well, everybody came to that show. Diana Ross came to it because one of our leading ladies had to leave, and we needed to replace her. And I thought of Sherry Payne right away because Sherry would have been perfect for the part. So I had known her. I called her up and she didn't have to audition. The directors knew who she was, and she came in as she was part of the show as well. But Barry Gordy came to the show a couple of times, and he really liked it. And he wanted to put me in touch with Suzanne DePass, and Suzanne DePass began managing me.
I was going to say yes.
Yeah,
Fun.
her and her cousin Tony Jones,
Yes.
and it was a great time because Suzanne and Diana were very close. I mean, they were best friends. So I kind of got to be in that world, and I think Diana accepted me because I was a friend of Suzanne's. And when we were doing Motown at the Apollo, they needed someone to look after different stars, and Suzanne said, "Well, I'm going to put you with Diana." She said because she really likes you, and hearing that was, so I got to sort of hang around her all day during that taping, and if she needed something, I could tell people what to do and what she needed, and it was great. It was an unreal experience with her backstage at the Apollo, pointing to the stairs and saying, "I can remember, me and Mary and Florence running down these steps to get to the stage, and how excited we were way back when they were playing the Apollo at the Motown Review." Uh, so that's how I got involved with Motown. And there was a man named John Silva who was head of finance at Motown Records. And I knew John, such a really, people credit me. John Silva really started everything. John Silva was the one who wanted to do 25th anniversary, and he called me to help him out with it. And
Now,
yes.
25th Anniversary came out in 1986, and it was not a double album, but it was a triple album. I was really excited because your name was in it, John Silva's name is in it, and J. Randy Taraborelli's name was in it, who at that point in 86 did a book called Motown Hot Wax, blah, 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 and it was like the
that's the title, Hot Wax, blah, blah, blah.
You gotta spell that out phonetically. All right, just sound it out. And that album, or that book rather, taught me about everything Motown. And so that's how I really understood who Janie Bradford was, or everybody. Like it was, and it had Sarita, it had Carolyn, there just had everybody I could possibly want to know about or didn't know about in the Motown Tamla label. And then prior to that, in 85, there was an album, there was a book called Diana, a celebration of the life and career of Diana Ross. So
also Randy,
yeah, also Randy Taraborelli. And then he did everyone like Cara Burnett and Cher and on and on and on. But he really loves Diana. And I had the privilege to say that he sent me this book in advance in, I think it was 2006 and 7, and it was around Diana Ross's birthday, and it says March 26, 2007, the diva's birthday. For Timothy, all the best, J. Randy Taraborelli. Now, you are friends with J. Randy, and you love Diana like J. Randy, and you were working with the archives and all the different things that make Diana in the 80s, with your play, with the reproduction, and even to this day, you're involved in the remasters and all the different reissued CDs and streamable things that are available. My quick question, talk about this project.
I will talk about that. I want to go back to Randy for a second, because we have been friends since the very early 80s. I knew of him because of the fan club, him and Carl Feuerbacher, who also ran the fan club. Randy's books are my favorite ones. I still think that Motown book is my favorite of the Motown books. And that Diana Ross book that you just held up, I think that is the ultimate biography of hers, because it really tells a very even story, and he does love her, and he knows the subject very well. And he'd ask me things. I would help out with chapters. Randy knows everything, but he'll forget. Sometimes he'll need his memory jogged about something. And we wanted to do a discography in the back and explain everything. So he basically let me run with that. And I just did a little description of every album and the singles from the album and what was happening at that time. And I'm really happy that a lot of people refer to that discography.
Yeah, it was interesting that in the discography, there's certain things that, I'm a lifelong learner of all things, as particularly Diana Ross and Supremes, but like the Change of Heart song, I did the motions. That's really hard to do with a microphone, by the way, but I can do it well. And it does it well. The Change of Heart was actually the single that radio picked up in Los Angeles, yet When You Tell Me That You Love Me came out instead. So this is really a lot of fun facts in this book. And yes, the discography in this book is just incredible. And I want to thank you for putting this in there and being a part of this. And so back to this production, the 25th anniversary of Diana Ross and the Supremes came out in 86. triple album with a glorious book inside that you and Randy put together with all the chronology of the albums in print and not in print. And tell us about it.
That was the most exciting time, as you can imagine, because that was the first thing like that, you know. And John Silva and I sat in the Motown studios after pulling tapes and listened to everything, which was, you can imagine what that was like for me, you know, selecting the songs to choose for the unreleased songs. And the booklet, I seem to remember that they'd only let us do it in black and white. Is that booklet only black and white? The booklet for 25th anniversary?
It's in black and white.
Yeah, I remember that at the time being a little disappointed because they said because of the costs, it had to be a black and white booklet. So a lot of photos that were really color photos, which we got out later. But the reason John Silva was so amazing is he just let me do everything. He kind of acted as the executive producer and knew that I was creative. So he just kind of let me run with it. And I haven't seen that for a long time. My albums are all in Las Vegas. I'd have to go back and pull that. But I remember, I believe it was, I love that picture with Diana in the center. And I asked them to colorize it because I thought, for the front cover, I thought it.
You hand tinted it yourself? Did you hand tint it yourself?
No, I did not do that one. I wouldn't have known how to do
Okay.
that way back then. You know, that was
But
something
you know how to do
the
it.
department did.
And you have done it. Yeah, you hand tinted the Baby It's Me era photos
I
to
did.
replicate the album.
Yeah,
Baby
I
It's Me.
did. I did do those. And again, I have no experience in it. I just sat at my computer, and there are people who could do it so much better than I could, but I just did the best that I could with those. But I don't know, is there anything about that? I think what followed that was the Rogers and Hart collection.
What's okay? The Rogers and Hart collection with, it said Diana Ross and the Supremes with a Ted LeMaster painting of the Supremes with Mary Florence and Diana. And then it had some the other tracks that were not released. 1987.
Well, that was the Ted LeMaster thing. I remember being disappointed that the art department just used it so small because it was supposed to be the whole cover. And somehow they did all that graphic around it and just made a little postage size stamp in there. But it was also a dream come true to work with Deke Richards. Deke Richards,
yes.
had him in the studio, and he remixed all of these songs. And I have to say, we left off If I Could Write a Book. That's not on that collection. I think that John, for some reason, thought it was, I don't know if it was a timing thing where back then CDs had to be a certain time, but I can remember having a conversation with John and him saying, well, it's so much like Johnny One Note and so much like This Can't Be Love. It's kind of overkill on that same thing. So we'll leave that one off. So I'm glad that it ended up on, being released a lot later.
Well, you kind of helped me answer a question that my 15-year-old brain was asking at the time when I bought 25th Anniversary at Cavage's record store, which was in shopping malls across the northeast of the country. You probably remember it, something like that in Pittsburgh. I thought, why is it like a trifold, like the anthology album, which came out in 74? It was like 3 albums, and it was like 3 gatefold. It was like a trifold. But it was the cost that they did, because like this only is like, it's just an extra large album and there's no opening. It just like, boom, there's 3 albums in there.
Yeah.
And there's the book. Yeah, that makes sense. Because
it was always a struggle.
Yeah.
They would even tell you could only put on this many songs because I guess they have to do a profit and loss thing. And that still happens today when we're doing expanded editions. We'll suddenly hear you got to cut 5 songs, you got to cut 10 songs, and for me and Andy, that's like putting a knife in our heart. What do we take off?
Well, The Knife in My Heart came out in 86 because you did the two albums in one CD. And I was like, it's not fair inside. I didn't tell anybody, but I'm telling you now. It was like, it's not fair. The albums don't look respectable because they had like the two albums and they would chop out songs. And of course, my ears would remember certain endings that weren't on the album that were on the CD because of time. They put two albums. It was called Two in One, Compact Motown Compact Classic. They had two albums and one CD, so it was like a Go-Go and Love Child. Or they had Diana Ross and Surrender, but they called it Ain't No Mountain High Enough, and they had 9 songs instead of the 11 songs. And I had all the great love songs, so I didn't have These Kings Will Keep Me Loving You. And
That's why those two were left off.
right, but that's not
I
right.
agree with you. I
Then,
didn't.
then
I,
in 1989, you came
right.
out all separate, and I was like, praise whatever the heavens. And there was a little white border, and I learned in graphic design that it was cheaper to not bleed. And of course it was pre-Photoshop, so I figured out what you did, and what you gave me was more than enough to last. And it's wonderful that I had respectable looking CDs to compete with my brother's Beatles collection that was really done masterfully and like detail, detail, detail. And those 89 versions were great because it was like it had the pictures that were they had the information that made me feel like this was respectable. And then you took a big leap with anthology and the Motown anthology, and then the Christmas one. Like you really, by the 90s and 2000s, you were really stepping up your game, and they were beautiful. And I wanted to thank you. And I think a lot of people are need to know that you and John Silva, Andy, and I think it's I want to say Kevin, really have really upgraded from the non-trifold with a booklet that's black and white to really glorious, glorious, respectable deluxe packages that are streamable. So it doesn't matter where you are, you could listen to them anywhere, and you get the complete experience of listening to all the different takes and nuances that a music fanatic like myself or yourself can really appreciate. So you definitely manifested, you know, finding success in your uniqueness and in your love of all things in entertainment and in Motown. And our first deep dive question is, which Diana Ross song, and you could pick the eras if you want, or multiple songs, like hold a special place in your heart, and maybe tell our listeners or viewers why it's so important.
Well, I think I would bet that a lot of people thought this. I heard Andy said "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," which I love. Something about "Remember Me."
Uh-huh.
I just think "Remember Me" is such a great song that it did fine on the charts. Yeah, but I just thought it deserved to be huge. You know, it's. I can listen to that one over and over again, even now. Yeah, and well, Ashford and Simpson, I love them producing her. The Boss is another one. I could listen to The Boss over and over again. From that era, from the Supremes, gee, I like some of the early things, like even if you're going really early, I could listen to Your Heart Belongs to Me and Breathtaking Guy. I like Time Changes Things. And of the hits of that era, I Hear a Symphony is a favorite, and Reflections and Someday We'll Be Together would be definitely up there. And I love the whole Baby It's Me album. I'm giving you too many, aren't I?
No, it's never too much and it's never too many. Baby It's Me album has got a lot to it. It's the first album that was solo produced by one single production person since I think Lady Sings the Blues. So 72 was 71, 70 was Ashford and Simpson, 70 was Deke Richards and Hal Davis. So there's two, and then back to Ashford and Simpson with Surrender. Then it was Lady Sings the Blues, which was who produced it?
Gillespie.
Gillespie. And then boom, there was like that kind of that hodgepodge of production, was kind of like a compilation essentially, but studio, one album. And then finally Richard Perry came in, who was, you know, with Carly Simon, and he did the Martha Reeves album, solo album, which is delicious. And Baby It's Me was the first I mean, just it was a very respectable package. It had the inner sleeve and the beautiful photographs, and
Yeah,
it is popular among fans. And there is not one clunker in that album. It's beautiful. It's
I think
beautiful.
Richard Perry seems to produce everybody's best albums.
He
I love
really,
the Barbara Streisand albums he did too. But
yeah.
I just think he knew how to produce people's, yeah, bring out the strong points. It was a shame that that album didn't have a lot of hits on it.
No, Baby I Love Your Way, was that supposed to be the lead single from Baby It's Me?
I don't think so. I just remember, I think Richard Perry said he loved it, but they didn't include it, or he thought it deserved to be a single, something like that. But because Peter Frampton had just had it, it,
Right. It was a
it
pretty
didn't
big,
make sense to put it
yeah.
out by
So
her. And he was really glad that it finally saw the light of day, even though I don't think it's finished because there are no strings. I believe he even said that he never really finished the song.
yeah, I noticed that when I got the
Yeah.
anthology album in '83, the double album with the beautiful the gatefold with all the information from 70 to 81 and all that thing. And there's certain things like We Can Never Like That Old Flame Again, and you had the A side and the B side of all the singles and the albums on one side of the gatefold. And for me, collecting, I'm sure many people collecting, it was like it was like that Wikipedia that didn't exist, so it was in my hard drive and fans hard drive. So there's certain songs and B-sides that I thought were interesting. And my big question about Baby It's Me, that came out in 1977, September of 77, the single Getting Ready for Love, or any lead single, didn't come out for like months because she was promoting, or not promoting, she was filming The Wiz, and she didn't do any television for it, and she just got a Tony, and she was in New York filming The Wiz, and so she didn't go with the circuit and promote the album. She had that
But from
television
what I
station.
was told, I think I might have even said that in Randy's book.
You
What I
did.
was told about that was
I don't know that. Yeah.
they put the album out first, and I think the album was out for 4 to 6 weeks,
Yeah.
and radio stations were all jumping on different songs, and some top 40 stations had already added "Your Love Is So Good for Me," and because it was the dance record, but Barry Gordy and Richard Perry, they really thought "Getting Ready for Love" was the one.
Right.
So eventually they put that one out, but I think too many stations were already playing other songs from it. And then by the time they did get around to "Your Love Is So Good for Me," the momentum was gone,
Right.
and it was too late. But it seems there should have been like 4 big hits off that album at least.
Right. Like there's a book by Vince Aletti, who was a Village Voice writer, and it's all about disco, and it goes from 70 to like 78. And
Mm.
it shows all the different cities in September. The cities were plugging in the discotheques all over the country. They were plugging Your Love Is So Good for Me. And they released it later in like February, backed with Top of the World. So it was like too much, too little, too late in
Yeah.
78, because the radio, and then Getting Ready for
Well,
Love.
actually, that wasn't "Top of the World." Wasn't, I think the B side of "Your Love Is So Good for Me" was "Baby It's Me."
It's Me, right? And then Top of the World was as a double a release into radio, and then was dropped in
Yeah, they did "You Got It"
You
after they
Got It,
did "You
right?
Got It," which did very well. Adult contemporary went top 10.
9. It went to 9, and Getting Ready for Love also plugged in at 9. Top of the World didn't it did went to 15 with Your Love Is So Good for Me on the dance chart. And
Well,
on
you know it.
Cashbox, I do know my stuff, man. If Wikipedia like dropped, it fell to the world, call Timothy Bellavia. I have all of this information, Cashbox, Record World, and Billboard in here. I'm serious. It's fun. But Getting Ready for Love tanked on Cashbox, and Record World is embarrassing. Like it didn't go to 27. And if you look at the Supremes, like no matter what sign you, no, was it Forever Came Today went to 13 on
Yeah,
Cashbox, but like it went to like 28 on
28.
Billboard. So it's just interesting how like the charts differ. And my money is on Cashbox.
Well, Cashbox wasn't that more sales?
Clearly, because Remember Me went to 9. Diana Ross has
Right.
more top 10s than Billboard on Cashbox. And her number ones are still number one. So she had 6 number one on Cashbox, 6 number ones on Record World, and 6 number ones on Billboard. But she had more top 10s in Record World and Cashbox.
Cashbox. Last time I saw him was
Yeah, it
top
went
10.
to 9. Okay.
That went to
And
9.
did Reach Out and Touch.
Reach out and touch. But people talk about the big difference between Up the Ladder to the Roof and Reach Out and
Reach
Touch.
Out.
The biggest difference was in Billboard.
Yeah.
10 and but if you look at Cashbox and Record World, they weren't that far apart in the numbers that they did sales wise.
So for my biggest music mystery question for you is just like on the To Love Again album, which was I consider it an album, do you consider it a compilation?
Yeah, well,
Because you were in the 2002 deluxe version that took other songs by Michael Masser and then other songs that were ballad or love songs in that February. So you kind of pushed up the red in her lips, which I appreciated in the photographs.
well,
In
To
the
Love
deluxe
Again
version,
was almost Greatest Hits Volume 2.
really?
Yeah, it was almost a Greatest Hits Volume 2, same cover, and it would have had the new songs. It would have had, but I think they thought it wasn't strong enough at the time. It would have had The Boss and I'm Coming Out and Upside Down and It's My House and Getting Ready for Love. And then it would have had It's My Turn, Stay With Me, One More Chance. So you would have gotten, I mean, It's My Turn was already a hit, but you would have gotten the three new, you would have gotten Stay With Me, One More Chance, and Crying My Heart Out for You as the new songs. But then I think Michael Masser was really happy that they changed it into a Michael Masser.
Yeah, because it's produced and composed by Michael Masser, and there's some really amazing gems in that album, like No One's Gonna Be a Fool Forever, and of course, One More Chance. Of the 3 songs, One More Chance, Stay With Me, and Crying My Heart Out for You, you and I met Allie Willis at the Hal Awards, and we were photographed with her. And of course, my conversation, besides her telling me how weird I was, which I loved hearing that from her. I mean, she's the ultimate to me. She could cross patterns and cross communications with, like, she's really a lyricist, but she can write music and she's not trained, but she's from Detroit. She's everything I wish I was, or I mean, on this planet, she's really was an incredible human being and an amazingly talented one. She talked about the song Crying My Heart Out for You that she wrote with Michael Masser. And she said she composed it and wrote the lyrics with him, which is different for both Michael and for Allie. So, of the 3 new songs, tell us about them. What were your feelings at the time with To Love Again?
Well, I was thrilled with, I know a lot of people didn't like it. I just thought her vocal performance was just great on One More Chance. I love that ending. A lot of people thought it was just too over the top, but that came out of anger. I think Michael Masser, from what I understand, pushed her so hard that I think she was pretty much snarling at him by the end of that song, as if, "Is this what you want?"
For
Kind of
Jennifer
thing.
Holiday, it's very Jennifer Holiday kind of vocal performance,
Yeah,
like, "One more, one more, one more chance,
it was really
telling
big
you,
for
one more
her.
chance."
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
that "Crying My Heart Out for You" was really commercial, and they did put that out as a single too. Yeah,
Was
they
very
were.
sweet. It's one of my favorites, Crying My Heart Out for You. It's almost like she's like, "Once again, I'm falling in love like a fool." It's really like it's almost like she's graduating to heartbreak with that song. Like she's like with honors, like Crying My Heart Out for You. She's graduated with honors, like not magna cum laude. She's like she's magna cum, no, she's summa cum laude with like her like degree in Love and Heartache and Crying My Heart Out for You. One More Chance. It went to 79. Do you remember hearing it on the radio and just loving it while you were driving around in
Well,
Los
I already
Angeles?
knew it from the album, and as soon as I heard it, I thought this has to be the next single, and it did get picked up by a lot of radio stations right away, and I did hear it, and I don't really know why it was dropped so quickly. I don't know if Motown pulled the plug on it. I don't know. I don't know if she
Yeah,
didn't want to
it
sing it live. Whatever it was, it seems to have just stalled really quickly.
um,
Uh,
right.
it's a shame that those records all came so quickly because they probably could have gotten more out of the Diana Chic album. Yeah, but they had to get it's my turn out.
Right.
That was a really crowded time, but boy, she was hot. Having those three songs in the top 40 at the same time.
Yeah, there were three times in her career where, like I had mentioned it in a previous interview, that that my self-produced previous interviews, and self-possessed. The Billboard charts in 68, 69, there were three Diana Ross songs in the top 40, top 100, and then 80, there was the same thing with It's My Turn, I'm Coming Out, and Upside Down. And then in 81, there's Endless Love, Why the Fools Fall in Love, and Mirror Mirror. 82. There were three Diana Ross records. And that's such a feat. Like it's just so incredible that, she was so hot so many times when most careers, like they piddle out after like the sophomore album, like it's over. And she was able to like, really have a long Billboard record world and cash box career. Which goes us to our next question. Which Star 80 question? And I'm kind of tailoring it to you, George. Which of Diana Ross's eras do you think, if you were like doing like a tribute show to Diana Ross with your tribute show, like a prelude to a new show, it's just you, and it was not only in Vegas, but it was it was like broadcasted around the world, like Diana Ross in 1976 from, Amsterdam with the Joan Crawford hat and fur, singing the thing from Mahogany first. What what um what part of Diana Ross's career you really think is it? Like
Well, there's a couple.
multiple times.
I think that I really like, and this is not the most popular choice. I loved the Diana Ross and the Supremes era. Now I was growing up a little bit more. I was, at that time I was 10, and I like how they stepped up the glamour. Everything was bigger. Her voice was getting more mature, and I always have a problem. People go crazy about that name change. If you see something online that says "The Happening" by Diana Ross and the Supremes, people go berserk. Say that was not Diana Ross and the Supremes. That was the Supremes. I've never heard another group. Have you ever heard anybody say, "No, I'm sorry, Sherry, Big Girls Don't Cry, Walk Like a Man"? That was not Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. That was just the Four Seasons. No one says Mickey's Monkey Shop Around. That was not Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. Have you ever heard that about any other group?
Well,
Let someone say that about the Supremes and they go
Tony
nuts.
Franco and the DeFranco family, we get a little bit, I'm totally joking, but I run that fan club on Facebook just because I want to know more about Tony DeFranco and his siblings. But seriously, you're correct. There is this kind of like divide about like Supremes purist and Diana Ross people, and like that, not that there's camps, but we should really define for the public that how many Supremes were there
Well,
contracted to Motown label, Tamla.
well, I say when there were eight. I mean, if you count Barbara, that's
I
nine.
always count Barbara.
Yeah, because Barbara was signed to Motown and she was on several tracks on the first album.
And you hear
So
her in 17.
yeah, and you hear her voice, and I just think she's maybe forgotten because she was gone prior to any hit records. But yeah, she was officially a Supreme, and of course it ended with Susse. But I think most people know that.
I
Well, I
don't,
mean, the fans know it.
well, fans know, but I just don't think like, cause like I just like, I remember just having cognitive dissonance. I even know I didn't know what it was, but I was like, who is this person? And it was like, in like a rock and roll history book in the library. And I took it out. I'm like, that's not Diana Ross. Who is it? And it was Sherry, Mary, and Susse, and I was so confused. And then I would go into used record stores because I was trying to collect the collection as soon as I could, and I saw Touch, and I'm like, this is not what's happening. Like it was the poltergeist. Like I just didn't understand. Like there's Cindy, there's Mary. What was that? And there wasn't a Wikipedia or any research that I could do. And then there was an article in People Weekly. And People Weekly, was it your dream to grow up to be in People Weekly, to like be this extraordinary human being and being roller skating and people like eating ice cream with Sherry Payne? Like, when they do a profile on the extraordinary people, they're so normal. They're like rollerblading with their best friend, which is like, we'll say it's Nona Hendricks and George or whatever. So like there was like Mary and Karen Jackson and Karen Raglan, and they talked about Cindy wasn't the original Supreme. Like, oh, there were more than one Supreme. There were more than the classic Supremes and Diana Ross and the Supremes. So my next question for you is, what is your favorite deep cut or B-side of Diana Ross and the Supremes? That's 1967, July 1 to 1969-ish.
Favorite B-side.
Or just a deep cut, like not the singles, not the A sides, not the
Yeah, yeah.
hits. And
Okay.
the,
Boy, I
or it could
like
be
I like I like the beginning of the end, which is kind of a strange choice. Now, I like going down for the third time and stuff, but those are still the Florence era. Yeah, even
well,
though
it was the B side of Diana Ross and Supreme's Reflections.
yeah.
So
So
that
it's a B side of a Diana Ross and the Supremes
okay.
song, but it's still the Florence era.
Okay.
And isn't it odd that they put time changes things on the back of Forever Came Today?
Not to me, it made total sense.
They went all the way back.
I think it makes sense.
Really? Explain how? Why
I
do you
don't know.
think
It just
why do you think
because
going all the way back?
forever, and then came today, and then time changes things. It's like it was almost like an answer record. B-sides to me always like tell the story. Like Reach Out and Touch is like all about love, and the B-side I think was Where the Dark Side of the
Dark Side of the
World.
World.
And Ain't No Mountain High Enough is like If You Need to Call Me, and then Can It Wait Till Tomorrow? Like, you know what I mean? Or Remember Me is like Remember Me as a Sunny Day, then How About You? Like I'm on to someone else. That's how I think. Okay. No,
I
you
think it's interesting
oh,
that you think that
Take
way.
Me, Take Me Higher was the single from 1995, the cassette single, that Timmy Regisberg remix that I didn't want to dance to. It just didn't work for me. I didn't like it as much, but I loved the song Take Me Higher. The next single was called Gone, which I thought was, and then that's the 45 or what was this the single, and the CD was like I'm Gone, and that was like, oh, that's like the answer record to Take Me Higher. Like there's a place up in the sky where the sun is shining, take me higher. The next song is I'm Gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that hurt me inside.
Yes.
Okay, so tell our listeners, um when you were with Dinah Ross in her presence, what is the biggest takeaway that you could possibly share? Like we're leading up to her birthday. She's going to be 80. She's the face of YSL. What was your biggest like you didn't fan out clearly. She liked you clearly. Tell us. What was it?
She was extremely kind and really nice to me and very warm. I think when she likes you, she really likes you, and and she was smart. She knew what she wanted. She was direct, but I never saw her be unkind to anybody. I'd see her speak her mind about things, but I never saw that side that people say, you know, diva or bitch or whatever you want to call it. I would see her be exact with what she wanted, but never mean to people, not in my presence. It meant the world to when she came to see Dream Street and came backstage and posed for all those pictures with me. And I just remember when I hugged her and said goodbye, whispering in her ear, I will remember this for the rest of my life. You have no idea what it meant to me seeing you in my audience. So I have nothing but really lovely things to say about the time spent with her. I haven't seen her for a very long time. You know, it's not as easy anymore to go backstage. She doesn't she doesn't let people in as easily. Well, she never let people in easily, but it's not the same as it was before. But my experience with her was really a positive one. I have nothing at all negative to say about her. I loved her.
Well, that's really groovy. With regard to that time, you're coming of age, you're living in Los Angeles, you left what I consider the hinterland. I mean, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania it's nice, but
Yeah.
there's more, right?
Yeah, well, I was in New York first.
Oh, you were in New York first. Well, New York,
Pittsburgh, then I moved to New York.
right. So you were with like, did you hang out with Lorna Luft and Mary Wilson and Mike Travis and that era?
No, I didn't know Mary until Las Vegas. It wasn't
Ooh.
until I was in Las Vegas doing Dream Street, I think, and I don't remember. I think I met Mary for the well, no, I met Mary for the first time at the Twin Coaches in 1971 when with Gene, Mary, and Cindy, when Nathan Jones was their new single, and I snuck backstage, and
Wow.
I was a blabbering idiot
Also,
backstage.
you did Hannah. That's cute.
Yeah, I was, and Mary was the one who was the most kind. Mary took more time. Cindy was nice. Gene was nice, but Gene seemed tired and kind of over it, and I was probably coming on so strong that
So,
Gene was trying to be nice, but I know all she wanted to do was go back into her back room and close the door.
yeah. So of that era of we're going to call it the JMC era. So
Okay.
got the MDF era, Mary, Diana, Flo. We've got the DMC, Diana, Mary, Cindy, or Drats, Diana Ross Supremes. The JMC era of the Supremes from 70 to 73. So from Up Ladder to the Roof to Bad Weather. Do you have like a song that you go to from the 70s Supremes with the JMC era that you're like, oh my gosh, I love it? Or it could be like a deep cut too.
It well, that Right On album is just to me a masterpiece, and I am so in the minority, but I could listen to Everybody's Got the Right to Love
You got the message because I was sending it to you.
100, and yet everybody says that should have never. As soon as I heard "Say Ah," I said that's the next single. That I heard those two notes, and I said that's the next single. I heard it. I heard it on. I heard in my head. I heard it on the radio. Yeah,
So
I said that's how you're going to hear that on the radio. And I remember when I played the 45, how disappointed I was with the sound of it and how they pulled the chorus so far back in the background. And I think Frank Wilson even said that he thinks the mix kind of screwed it up because I thought it was a hit record, and there are a couple different versions of it. I like the version we put on Greatest Hits and Rare Classics with the alternate Gene
yes,
vocal.
1991. Golly, was I excited when I went to the record store in the shopping mall. I was about to move to New York, and I was like, oh my gosh, He's My Man is on here, all the 70s on CD, which was the new thing-ish. And then you had the solo of Sherry Payne's
Yeah,
solo recordings. One was from When I Looked at Your Face, which Jodie Foster did first, I think. And then there was this something like Life from Now, which I thought, wow,
Another Life from Now.
disco, and she could also do Where Do I Begin? I mean, she can do that kind of Diamonds Are Forever kind of vocal strategy. It's just pretty incredible. But back to JMC.
Okay.
If you were the A&R human being behind Right On with a cool gatefold with all of them standing in those brown sugar gowns, what would be the next single after Everybody's Got the Love? Let's say that Everyone's Got the Right to Love. Everybody's Got the Right to Love shoots to #1 on Billboard Hot 100, NAC, and the R&B charts. Forget Stone Love. And then they had to pull back Stone Love, which went to 7 and #1 the R&B charts. What would be the next single off of Right On? You're the
Right On. Well,
You're the next student.
I thought I Got Hurt Trying to Be the Only Girl in Your Life was a good song, but The Loving Country would have kept the theme of the peace love theme. But a lot of people think that should have been second. Oh my God, Then We Can Try Again. That's a thrilling song too. That's another one I could play. My next door neighbor, Sharon Piscatelli, had the Right On album.
Hell
And
yeah.
Then We Can Try Again was her favorite song. She played that song. I could hear it over and over again coming out of her house. And so that, you know, I'm a bad interview person because it's so hard for me to give you a definitive answer because those songs were all just so good. And that was such a happy time for me.
Right.
That was amazing.
So
We had the
you're in
Diana
middle
Ross album, the
school.
Supremes album.
You're in middle school. There's like 3 albums a year from the Supremes and
Yeah.
albums from Dinah, sometimes 3. 71 was a 70, 71. There was 2 Dinah Ross, 71, 70, there's 2 Dinah Ross albums. 71, there was 2 Dinah Ross albums. And 70, there's 3 Dinah Supremes albums with the 4 Tops, Right On, and New Ways But Love Stays. 71, there's 1, Touch, and then 72, there's 2 with the Jimmy Webb and Floyd Joy. I have to ask, because we need to, all things are leading to Diana Ross. Were you ever at a Supremes concert without Diana Ross, but Diana Ross was in the audience? Because there's a lot of photos of Diana Ross supporting Mary, Cindy, and Jean, and Linda. And she was on the Tonight Show saying, I was seeing the Supremes, and it was 1977, and that was to say Mary and Sherry. So
Yeah,
were you?
I was never, I'm pretty sure Randy was. I seem to recall him telling me about, maybe it was the Schubert in LA with Sherry, Mary, and Cindy. No, I was never in the audience at any time when she was there.
Did you grow up in the same town as J. Randy Taraborelli, or
No,
were you
he was in Philadelphia. I was in Pittsburgh.
still in the same state? That's right. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And were you involved with the fan club that Randy ruled in the 60s as a young person, drawing a picture of Diana Ross and giving it to her?
I
Were you?
got the I got the newsletters, but I
Wow,
didn't know him then. I didn't meet Randy until I think 1980.
wow.
Yeah,
And
we never actually met until I was out in Los Angeles.
do
And
you still have the newsletters from Randy Taraborelli?
I think they're I think they're probably in a box
So
back
you,
in Las Vegas.
oh,
I think I probably have a lot of them.
so you,
I have to say, sadly, it's boring for an interview. I
yeah.
had boxed up a lot of things in 2 big boxes when I moved from New York to Los Angeles, and those 2 boxes never arrived. And a lot of that was magazine articles and things like that. So a lot of those things could have been lost.
So I don't know if this is streamable, but there's a 70s anthology that you were involved in besides, pardon me, Greatest Hits and Rare Classics, which came out in 91. It was a single disc, but it was just full of gems.
Well, you probably
That
know
was,
the story behind that. It was supposed to be Greatest Hits and Unreleased Classics was supposed to be, uh, Rare Classics. It was supposed to have unreleased material on it. And we actually mastered it with a lot of those songs like Life Beats and Remote Control. There were a lot of things on there. And then at the last minute, we were told we had to lose all the unreleased and they were going to scrap the Supremes collection altogether. And I begged them. I said, give me 24 hours to redo this. That's what I put in a lot of the album cuts. And I used a lot from the Jimmy Webb album because I was told that was never going to be on CD.
right.
I
Well,
thought
so there's no
these
market.
other ones will probably get, but at that time, not knowing what was going to happen with CDs, you tried to put songs on that you think they may never come out any other way. And I also did a different cassette version. I got in trouble for that. I made the cassette different than the CD.
I was always a person that would look and like really look at details. So I would see, like, for example, there was a video that Randy did for girls groups, The Story of the Sound. And I remember saying, oh, that's J. Randy Tabarelli interviewed Mary when she said And she swallows it. I was a star when I was doing. Maybe I want to sing lead in some records, but overall, and like I say that to myself all the time. I'm a star in what I'm doing. Maybe no, I'm joking, but not really. But the point I'm making is, were you there? Were
Was
you
I?
there? Mary was dancing around with that B footage of with like the 1968 TCB gown, and she had the deep cut velvet, black velvet one that kind of looks like doesn't kind of look like it, but looks like this.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't there when she shot that.
Right, okay, but like I was like, were you friends with Randy when he interviewed her for Girl Groups, The Story of a Sound? It was like a
I
video cassette.
I must have been because that was in the 80s.
Yeah, yeah. So you definitely were there. I mean, how cool, how cool. That was great. Okay. So, moving into our bombastic review of these questions that we're totally getting more and more and more. I have to ask, as we lead to the Star 80, we're celebrating Diana Ross's 80th birthday. I just want to make it for the record that Diana didn't just leave the Supremes. She was still part of their lives. She was part of the concerts. She supported them. There's pictures of Diana and Linda at the Image Awards. Diana has the green YSL fur that she wore on the top of the Macy's parade, Thanksgiving parade in 79. Were you in New York when Diana performed The Boss, your favorite song that you can never get tired of? Were you outside freezing when she sang The Boss
No,
on
I
top?
was not in New York. I remember watching that at the time from Los Angeles. I was in New York. I saw her at the Palace, in '76. I was in the front row twice for the Palace, and that was an amazing time. But no, I wasn't there at the time. But you're right. She did support the Supremes quite a bit. And whenever I'd be in her company, she always asked about Mary, or have you seen Mary? Have you talked to Mary? How is she? How's Cindy? And then when I was with her with Sherry too, she was always very kind. Always wanted to see how Mary was doing, and
Supreme's positive, absolutely.
yeah, she
So,
really liked Sherry too. She always liked Sherry a lot.
well, what's there not to like about Cherry? I
Yeah,
mean,
how
she's
how can you not like Sherry Payne?
I mean, she's so pretty and she's a Scorpio. She's just amazing. I think she has the same birthday as Chutney, Diana Ross's daughter, the third child of the
I
five.
didn't know that.
Um, everything is, yeah. So, Sherry is incredible. I have to ask, what is what is your like favorite Sherry lead song? Now, Sherry was a lead singer from 73 when Gene and Linda left. And then Cindy came back, and then Cindy left. But Cindy, Sherry, Mary, and Susie were the Supremes from 70 until 77 when they broke up. But do you have a favorite
Yeah,
Sherry Payne lead
it's
that
all
would
been
tell
said
us?
before. It's all been said before. Eh,
So this is my next question. So when I was 15, and it was the same year that this came out in the record store. There was these deluxe CD versions of Anthology, and the cover changed, and it had the same liner notes, but then you plopped down the Supremes without Diana Ross at the end, which it was the original 74 triple album that went gold with an RA with a plaque and everything. And
Yeah,
then in 86 in January. And then in like Christmas time, a holiday time, you did the anthology with the pink, and that was kind of like they just blew them out. But you have the 70s Supremes tagged on the end on the second disc. Were you the reason why It's All Been Said Before was put on that
I
anthology?
sure was. I it's another one that people a lot don't. I just thought it's another one that as soon as I heard that album, I heard that introduction to It's All Been Said Before. I thought, why isn't this a single? This was so Supremes sounding to me, but bringing them into a different era. I wish that had come out before the album, that they had got It's All Been Said Before out. And Sherry, now Sherry thinks the key was cut too high.
Well, it's in the same key of love and loss as crying my heart out for you, because if I were to compare and contrast, it's like In your arms, safe and warm, da 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 da. And I'm a fool, say no more. It's all been said before. And like there's certain lyrics in that song that are just searing. And like it's really adult, contemporary, like you can dance to it too. But it's painful, the certain the things that Sherry's singing about that I clearly she's felt or feeling because it's like she graduated with honors in heartbreak in that song.
Yeah,
And
well,
and Marie
she went
covered.
through it in her life too. So
Well,
I think Sherry was always someone who she would still call upon, personal feelings, like a lot of great vocalists do.
a lot of great artists do in terms of
Yeah.
whether it's visual, dance, all forms of performance, stage or what. It's like they do draw from what's inside. And their lyrics in It's All Been Said Before that are just, oh my. And then it has that mirror and the plane of view. It's like really incredible because that was the standout track for me when I bought that box set. And it has that really cool long box before, Saving Paper was, they removed that. But that was critical. I have to thank you publicly, professionally. Thank you. Because that song really was helpful. It still is.
No,
It's
I
so,
love that. No, that album, Color My World Blue, was a favorite. They shortened a lot of songs on that album.
yeah.
If you listen to what, Andy and I have listened to, like for instance, Where Do I Go From Here was a like 6 minute song. And they chopped it right down to it, even for the album version, they made it like a 3 minute song. But that would have been, especially coming into the disco era, I'm surprised they didn't leave that the full length. And the album was so short. You
Right.
know, they could have, and obviously He's My Man
Yeah.
was very long also.
Yeah.
And Early Morning Love, which we found out when we did the Mary Wilson anthology, that was, they were producing disco length songs on that album, but they made them all very short for that record. But
Back to
that was a thrill. That came out about the time I graduated from high school. I love
yeah.
that album.
So back to Diana Ross, star 80. She's turning 80 on March 26th. Is there any, in this fashion and flair, Diana's iconic style is undeniable. Which one of her looks, from her gowns to the sequins, truly for you really encapsulates like who Diana Ross is? Like, for example, I was bored this summer and I made all these Diana Ross gowns with repurposed puppets with repurposed material. So I didn't buy anything, but they were all given to me. Diamond Diana. Like but this was all, I attracted all this material. This is my, like this one, okay, like just like from Vegas. Or this is the era, I think, when she did Il Maquillage and you were photographed with her.
Yeah,
It's the bluish purplish gown she wore with the little things on the top that she was with Chris Christopherson in the Grammys 81. So what Diana gown were you like when you were like whatever seeing her in?
well, I think if I had been in a concert and I saw her in the butterfly gown, I probably would have passed out. Yeah, I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen that gown. I went with Mary. I've actually, like Andy was talking about holding, I've actually held that gown and I've held the green swirl gown. But I love that Diana Ross and the Supremes era. But I think that, boy, moving into the 80s, she did some beautiful, that white, yeah, she had a white gown with something like flowers on the yeah, up on the sleeves, and what
yeah,
she wore at the Forum. And
yes,
I just look, she's got some great looks now.
yeah.
She's coming out some beautiful things now. But I probably think that early '80s period was
So
because I was around then too, so it was special for me.
yeah, so like the whole Mackie with that little button in the front where that's all gathered to the top, and that there was kind of like from 78 to like 81, she was really into white and silver with a turban and all that. But those were how you kind of removed and add and remove and add. Pretty fun. Um, the live or studio. Do you prefer Diana Ross live or do you prefer Diana Ross in the studio?
Live, because I think that she doesn't get enough credit for what a great vocalist She is. And I think when you hear her live, especially, man, you get into that era from the late 70s and the HBO special and an evening when she was really belting her face off on these songs and like sing songs from the Wiz, yeah, around that time. She was, I think it's not fair. A lot of people, even friends of mine, people, when she comes up, they think, well, she's not a really great singer. Well, they're so wrong. They don't know. They think of her as a wispy voiced little thing without, and I've played things for people and they said, that's Diana Ross. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And I like that Valerie Simpson recently talked about how underrated when she said, I've worked with just about everybody. And I put her right up there with, with the greatest vocalists when it comes to range and emotion. She makes it look easy, and it's not.
So, with regard to live, in your presence, when you saw Diana Ross as a younger person or as a, a more seasoned person, what was there a particular concert you were just like, I'm walking on air? Like, and can
An
you
evening, and I saw her in An Evening with Diana Ross.
tell the people what was the evening with Diana Ross? It was 1976. It was at the Palace Theater. She broke box office records. It was a Tony Award winning Broadway show that traveled the world. Tell us about it.
Well, that show, most fans know that's the one that started off with the dress that opened up and revealed the mahogany scenes on her dress. It
Innovative with
was it was
projection.
kind of an autobiographical show done through songs from a chorus line. She kind of told her story, and I love the Motown section and the Supreme section. She just did it all. She did the Working Girls, with Bessie Smith and Billie Holiday and Josephine Baker, which translated beautifully to her big event special,
The
where
television special for 90 minutes, the first ever, forget any identity politics. It was the first TV special that was hosted with one single human being for 90 minutes, and it was on NBC. And she had the same makeup artist that the Wiz that did Michael Jackson's face transform her into Josephine Baker, Bessie Smith, and Ethel Waters, which was in the play.
right.
Okay. And the line, finding success in your own uniqueness, was what got me through everything.
Oh,
Was there a particular something in that show that made you stop, or was the whole show? But could you just give, because you were there, and it's different watching in the TV special, and it's different listening to the album. But was there a certain part of the album, or pardon me, is there a certain part of the show that you were like, you were just beside yourself?
yeah. When it first of all, from the very beginning, the Here I Am, her voice sounded so magnificent and so much bigger than I expected. It doesn't even sound as good on the album, but when you're in the theater, her voice was so rich, and I was thrilled by that opening. But then when she segued from Mahogany into Ain't No Mountain High Enough, and she was when it got to the when she broke, it was so powerful when she broke into Ain't No Mountain High Enough that you had to stand up out of your, you had to get up. It was so dramatic and so exciting, and
And
she
that was
was
the first
really
time.
putting her heart into that.
Was that the first time? It was the first time that she still does it. Say with, do you know? Do you know? Do you know? And then she goes, into Ain't No Mountain. That was the first time she did that in An Evening with Diana Ross. And then she's
Right.
carried it on throughout her career. But you saw it first in the Palace Theater with that arrangement with the Do you know where you're going into Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Yes, and that was very thrilling at the time. Here, not expecting that, and it's soaring into Ain't No Mountain High Enough like that. That stands out in the show, and of course the Supremes medley was a lot of fun, and her voice was so strong during that, much stronger than when she had sung them back in the 60s.
Correct. Now, quick question, because I've had the thrill of seeing Diana Ross more than a human should or could. Um, and recently, I was really blown away with the recent Thank You tour, and then the other tour that was in 2023 that I said I'm not going to go, but I ended up going, and I'm yeah. So but when she enters a stage, it's usually different. And Hollywood Bowl, she came down with a known to Hendrix swing with the red feathers and everything.
Mhm.
And then, recently my husband Dino was really surprised because she sang "I'm Coming Out from the Back" and came on the stage, which he had never seen her before. And he was like, he was on his feet. He was a bigger fan than I was. It was kind of fun to see that. So my question to you is, when she sang "Here I Am," and then the gown turned into a screen, and it was the mahogany, you know, montage from the film projected on her body screen, which was innovative for 1976, and she kept getting more innovative with going through the screen. How did she enter the stage? Because I've kind of always wanted to ask somebody, but they usually don't remember. You remember what? How was it? Just the spotlight on her face? Like, tell us.
Yeah, it was the mime. Came out in the dark. You couldn't see her. There was a mime on stage with like a butterfly effect, and the butterfly flew over, and all of a sudden it lit up her face, and she blew it a kiss and blew the butterfly away
Okay.
before she sang "Here I Am." So yeah,
So,
it
and
was.
the audience goes nuts
Oh
when
well, as soon as you see her face,
okay, so this is the face. Then of course in your brain the strobe light pulls it out, and then there's this screen that like the mimes pull off her shoulders, and it's a silver screen. And so I wouldn't change a thing is when she's dancing with the feathers, and then the butterfly was it, so that's what happened on
yeah. Well, yeah, you've seen the footage of that. Uh,
Yeah, but I just wanted to like get a better vision, because even on like on Memorex or on anything on tape, it's just not the same. And your
no,
eye goes where you're in the state when you're in the theater, you don't really like it. It's kind of like you're seeing it through the view of like, what's his name? The guy that films everything for Diana since the Tammy show, Steve Binder. So
Steve
it's like
Bender,
Steve Binder's eyes. Like he always knows where to put the camera, the lights. He's really good to Diana. Thank you.
yeah, he
See.
was the director of the Motown Review TV show too.
Yeah, I know. I knew that.
Yeah.
But thank you for telling. So you work with Steve Binder, who, for those who don't know, Steve Binder goes back to the Tammy show.
Mhm.
And this was probably the first time you saw the Supremes. Did you go into the movie theater to see the Tammy show, which stands for Teenage Music International?
I did not see that in the theater. The first time I saw them in a movie was Beach Ball.
Ooh. So
Yeah,
tell
I
us
was in
about
the
when you saw
theater.
the Supremes in Beach Ball.
Yeah,
96.
and as a
I
kid, I remember thinking when they said their latest song, and I thought, no, their latest songs I hear a symphony. Yeah, so I
cognitive dissonance before it was a thing. Like
huh?
I'm an educator, so like cognitive dissonance is
Oh,
like a neurodiverse, it's a new way of saying things about learning. And so you're having dissonance, meaning you weren't connecting to what was there. That's not true. That's not the latest record. And I have to thank you again and again, because of you, we got to have Beach Ball and Surfer Boy on the 25th anniversary, which was really cool because I liked that was the first movie I ever saw where there was a guy that was dressed up as a girl, but kind of wasn't serious about it, like a clown. It was weird. It was a weird movie.
oh
Which,
yeah, I don't remember much about the movie except
yeah,
for that. I'm going to go
like
back.
a remake of that movie with George Clooney. I think it would work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we were talking about her concert, and Andy mentioned this a lot too about how she started so many things, and that entrance for the next show coming down the screen and walking there was nothing like seeing that in person. That that just doesn't translate on the screen to what
Right.
it was like when you were sitting there and she was walking down those steps. You were almost like, oh, it was just surreal when she walked through that screen.
Which was again at first because like, this just didn't happen before, and they swoop her up and they take her up to like Motown heaven up the stairs, and she's got that thing, and she's still singing live on her back to Ain't No Mountain. She opens with Ain't No Mountain and she ends with Ain't No Mountain. So like when you saw her swooped up by the dancers, including her brother Chico, Chico was part of the dancers, and so like, were you blown away that she did? Were you expecting her to go back to Diana Ross Motown heaven at the end of
Well,
the?
it was going that way. I think that well, when I first saw it, it was before The Boss came out. So when I
Right.
first saw it, Ross was the new album, and she was singing. She sang "Lovin', Livin' and Givin',"
Love,
and she sang "You Were the One."
love.
Yeah,
When did she sing that song? When in the show did she sing your love? Your
I was. She sung to. She did "To Love Again" the night before I was there, but she had cut it that night
Mhm.
at the amphitheater. I was looking forward to hearing that. But "You Were the One" was her closing number. And then that segued back into Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Do you remember the arrangement of "You Were the One"? You were the one.
Yeah, it was very similar to the record. And then it went right back into Ain't No Mountain High. And when that's when they picked her up and took her.
So when was Mahogany? This was like the 78 tour that broke box office records during the Whiz. She dropped the Whiz medley, she dropped the tracks from Ross, and she added the Boss songs. So my question to you and to all our listeners, a joke, our viewers, when she did Do You Know Where You're Going To? Because that was the #1 hit. Did she Do You Know Where You're Going To? Ain't a Mountain High Enough. And then she came back with the robe on and sang You Were the One, and then went to Diana Ross Heaven? Like, how did that work?
Well, that's what my recollection is, that for a brief time, she did Mahogany on its own.
Really?
Yeah, I think that Mahogany was a standalone.
I don't think I would like that. I need Mahogany to go into Ain't No Mountain High Enough. I don't think
Yeah,
it's like it just would just end in a no. I want to go higher. Take me to that mountaintop. So that
yeah,
was
it must have been because You Were the One definitely segued back to Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Well, You Were the One is a song that like a lot of two people, a lot of people, of the 14 people that I've interviewed, two people said that that was the unexpected gem or hidden treasure that could be Diana Ross's return to love and to return to like a Billboard Hot 100 renaissance, like, because of like Brenda Lee could top the Billboard Hot 100 with like Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. I think You Were the One could possibly make it to the dance chart with Eric Krupper's help of mixing it. So tell us, what is the unexpected gem that you would predict that would be like a renaissance for Diana Ross at 80 years old? It would be like all the greatest hits by Diana Ross, the entire collection produced by John Silva, George
Uh,
Solomon, and Andy Thoreau, with mixes by Kevin Rees and Timothy Bellavia's approval. Who would be contains the smash single of
I
2020?
feel that I think Surrender was really a lost hit. I mean, they had it top 10 in the UK, but man, if ever I thought, and I also think I'm Still Waiting should have been big here.
It
But
did very well in Cashbox and Record World. Just letting you know. It's shocking to me. So Surrender only went to 38 on Billboard, and it went to 16 on the R&B chart. And I was told from someone from that era, she was born in 52, that discos played Surrender like, pre-disco, like Fly Robin Fly disco.
mhm.
What's it like? There's a couple songs in 74 that discos opened up, and it wasn't disco, but it was, disco effects. And Surrender was a crowd pleaser in clubs in like
Yeah,
70, 71.
it was on radio too. Surrender in Pittsburgh, they didn't play "Reach Out, I'll Be There," but then they played "Surrender." Yeah,
Right.
so I thought "Surrender" was on its way, and
Right.
I think that a lot of different markets that "Surrender" did well in, but not enough to make it. But that song had commercial success written all over it, and I know that they were all disappointed. Even Diana at the time, I think, said that she was disappointed that Surrender didn't do better.
Yeah, she
They
said
were
that in a UK interview around the time Lady Sing the Blues
yeah,
was making its debut in
yeah.
70.
That to me was a lost hit.
Well, that album is just really beautiful. Like it really, I prefer it over the debut album,
Yeah,
Surrender.
well, it's tough. They're both right up there.
Right.
But
So do you have a favorite go-to Diana Ross album that you know, because with streaming, you know what you listen to more. If you have a smartphone, you know, it tells you listen to Remember Me like 74,000 times opposed to like I Am Me, which you only listened to, you didn't. So like what
I
song,
probably listened to Surrender. I,
Surrender is the
I think
album?
I would probably play that with the debut album and Baby It's Me and The Boss
Mhm.
being right,
Those
right
are your
in there
top
as
four.
well.
Could you give us a top five? What's the fifth album in that? If we could add the number five.
Uh, what else would I play a lot?
Yeah, like you. So you said the boss. We're just gonna go backwards. The Boss, Baby It's Me, Surrender, Diana Ross, the debut album, not the 1970 album. What is the fifth album, if we can give you a top five that you would put in there? That just because I like it's an odd number and I'm an odd man.
Um, I don't know why this is coming to mind, and I might think of later that I missed something, but I'm one of the few people that like the Silk Electric album.
I'm the other person. I knew it. I wasn't sending you the single. I knew it. Every song on that album I love, including Turn Me Over. I love everything about it. It deserved a Grammy just for packaging alone. Andy Warhol, the insides, the canvas, the back of the portrait, and she has Tracy, Rhonda, and Chutney. So they have she has prints that Andy Warhol did too. So Silk Electric. So that's leads to this next special question for you. If you were asked by RTC management now, and you were invited to what used to be the Sherry Netherland, but we're just gonna say you were invited over or a Zoom conference, and they said, okay, George, we want you to go in with Kevin and Andy to mix the RCA years, but only one could be a deluxe package. Would it be Silk Electric?
Gee, I don't know if there was enough more material for Silk Electric to make it a deluxe because Silk Electric had a lot of holdovers from Why Do Fools Fall in Love.
Right. So what of the holdover songs from, but there's something about that you mentioned it earlier, and you're a person with a really good ear and really good taste, clearly, because Silk Electric is fabulous. So what's there's certain like for example, Ross with a Cigarette, the mix of that album, it just really is good. I don't care. It went to 49 in the Billboard charts, but it's a really good sounding album. Even Reach Out, I'll Be There, I prefer it on Raws as opposed to Surrender. So my commentary is like if you're to like really push up the vocals and do your thing, do your magic in the studio with that RCA album, what song do you think would you'd have your magic touches or just
Oh,
so
I'd like to hear Eaten Alive, that whole album remixed.
really
Yeah, I think I like that album too, and it's another one that people weren't crazy. I think the sequencing was wrong. I I think that people were put off by Eaten Alive, even though it was an exciting record, but it wasn't. Again, it suffered from lack of a story that you could understand.
yeah, I sent my first certified letter to Diana Ross. I literally did because I thought, well, I got her address because I got this book called like Celebrities Homes. So I sent it to the El Camino address, but I guess the guy from Cheers lived there and he signed it. So I watched the credits. I'm like, oh, he signed it. But I sent her a love note basically, and I typed it up and I had mentioned that Eaten Alive, I thought the single should have been I Love Being in Love with You
That's a
because
beautiful song too.
she says all those friends I left behind. And I really believe her in that song. So with the A&R with Eaten Alive, would you have put like the George Harrell photograph on the cover and called it Experience? Like tell us what you
Yes, that's exactly what I would have done.
and so
I
this
think
is
I would have called it
I was
Experience.
15 years old and I like totally drew like what I wanted her to do with that album and reissue it and take off Eaten Alive and then just call it Dinos Experience and then released Chain Reaction. But this lead single would be I Love Being With You. So it would like, because people would buy it in 1986 thinking it was a new album.
Well,
And she
that
never got
that
the letter or the message.
that album is also special because I was really hanging out with her around that time, and she had to do a promotional uh, interview where she was going to be her talking on camera, and there was a list of questions. She wanted to talk about not just her career, but specifically Eaten Alive. And I was in her room at Caesar's Palace, and uh, she asked me. She said, "Well, would you feed me the questions?" So I was off camera, and there was a camera on her, and it got to we stayed, so we were there until it was like 4 in the morning, and it got to the point where her and I were the only two people left there, because we were talking. And I love that whoever was in charge of it gave me the questions, and Diana said, "Forget those questions. You know what to ask me whatever you want."
Was
And
this like a 1985 sweater? It was kind of like pink and like black. It was kind of like asymmetrical with her hair. I think I know this footage.
well, you never see me, because what they would do is they'd have some other interviewer ask the question that I asked, and they would
I
cut
know
to
the
her.
interview. I know that you're off camera, but I know the interview. I know the lighting and everything.
Yeah,
I know
that probably was it.
it
But
was post Il Maquillage makeup. It was post Il Maquillage. She started doing that kind of thing with the eyes where it was kind of a little not raccoonish, but like it wasn't Il Maquillage, because the Il Maquillage makeup was when you were with her with Sherry. Like it was beautiful colors in her eyelids, like it was gorgeous. And then she
oh,
started doing her makeup without Il Maquillage, the makeup around that time.
well, the
And
album hadn't come out yet. This was right after a concert where Swept Away was still,
right.
and Telephone, she was doing Telephone in the act. And we went up to her room right after that. So I hadn't heard any of the songs on Eaten Alive. So it was interesting for me hearing her. I couldn't wait. She had just filmed the video, and I
Right.
hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah. Well,
And
all the videos on that project are amazing. Experience, Eaten Alive, and Chain Reaction, great videos, her best. Now, interestingly enough, when I bought my 45 and the 12-inch and everything, I thought Eaten Alive was the song More and More, because they made a mistake on the printing of the 45 that I had. It said Eaten Alive, and it was the ballad. Well, that makes sense, but why is there a tiger on the thing? And then the B-side was it the B-side was More and More, and it was Eaten Alive. So then I listened to the lyrics, and they were like, oh, there's a mistake. And then some people had like a mix on one's B-side. So it was like a kind
no,
of
I
like
thought that's what I thought it was Eaten Alive. The single version. Then the B side had like a more rock version. It
see, it
was
must
kind
have
of
been a
like an
best
edited
person.
version of the 12-inch.
Yeah, see, because and I preferred the 12, I preferred the instrumental of Eaten Alive on the 12-inch, because it was when Michael was singing, got it to the tree, call a love of me. Like, I don't want to get the eaten, eaten. And then I should have gone to the vocal, but just went instrumental. I never received the B-side in the East Coast in New York, because we had More and More. Or it was, no, I'm sorry, it was what I'm Watching You, I thought was the I thought that was Eaten Alive. I thought, well, maybe it's like one of those songs that like Love Hangover that doesn't say Love Hangover, but it was like I'm Watching You, like she's watching a tiger. And then I turned it over, no pun intended, and then there was Eaten Alive. I'm like, oh, that's the single, and I didn't like the mix of that. I did, and then I liked the hot dance mix that I bought on 12-inch, and then I got the album Eaten Alive, which I just didn't like the song Eaten Alive. And I was young that you would think I would, because it had all the ingredients with Michael Jackson, the guitar, the dancey thing, but there was just something that wasn't right. So you would want to remix that album Eaten Alive. You would want to like remaster it and kind of bring out the nuances in the vocal performances.
Yeah, I would love. I think she gives some good performances on that album.
What
And
is the best performance on Eaten Alive?
best performance,
Vocally, like, ooh,
Crime of Passion.
thank you.
I love the fiery performance of Crime of
Chicken
Passion.
bones and chicken mouth. Yeah, I agree. That's what I wrote in my certified letter at 14. I said, what are you thinking? Experience and I Love Being With You and Crime of Passion. That should have been the dance song. And she
Yeah,
never,
I have friends
I
who when they
even
heard
did the
Crime of
graphic.
Passion, they just
So,
thought, how could this not have been a single?
so you've been greenlit in this fantasy of redoing Eaten Alive for the masses on digital demand and physical. Would you also, what what caught in Silk Electric, which you mentioned with the Andy Warhol with Muscles, what song speaks to you in that album? That 10-song album, including Turn Me Over.
Ah, gosh, I like the ballad. I like Still in Love. I like Love Lies, but I thought Fool for Your Love was exciting.
Now there's a according to your book
There's
with
a
Terry,
12-inch,
there's a 12-inch version of Fool for Your
but
Love.
I haven't even heard it. I haven't even heard the 12-inch, but I know that in concert, Fool for Your Love was very exciting.
I remember hearing her sing Fool for Your Love, and I was excited because it was like it was rock and it was different. And I thought every song on the side, every track on that album was amazing. Fool for Your Love. Do you have any affinity for the song Who or Anywhere You Run To?
Yeah, I mean, anywhere you run to, it's just a good, catchy. Yeah, I like that very much. I wish if the album had been sequenced a little bit differently, I think people would have warmed up to the album more.
Mhm.
Yeah, if there had been a little bit more, I don't know, maybe Muscles followed by Who, followed by Still in Love, then maybe Anywhere You Run To.
Yeah,
I think I would have saved the harder, I may have put Fool for Your Love on side two,
yeah,
like maybe right before I Am Me,
yeah.
because it's
I prefer the I Am Me extended version that was on the B side of Tell Me Again, which you heard in LA. They played Tell Me Again a lot from Red Hot Rhythm Blues, the '87 album.
mhm. Well,
So,
I had a good friend who was the program director for Coast Radio, and I got him playing Tell Me Again from the album, and then RCA put it out because
oh,
it was already being played on Coast Radio out
interesting.
here.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know what they were planning to put out as a single next, but I I think they put Tell Me Again out because it was already getting radio play. Then it
interesting.
didn't
On
really
the
do anything.
in the East Coast, I heard in Toronto, Buffalo, Rochester, they played It's Hard for Me to Say. And I heard It's Hard for Me to Say up until like the 90s on the radio and regular like Light FM. They always played It's Hard for Me to Say, but it obviously was regional. Somebody liked that song and they played it, but it was more than one radio station that played It's Hard for Me to Say. So this is the final RCA question because
Okay.
I wanted to just ask one more question. When Ross came out in 1983, that was during the Central Park concert. If you were in New York, all you saw was this big hair when this very interesting photograph that I didn't recognize her. I still don't see her in it because it's just too, I don't know, it's just not.
I thought the same thing.
I had to ask the person at the record counter, is this really Diana Ross? Because it says her name on the spine, but it says Ross. Is it a band? Is it like Cher, like with that album that with a high heel? I was like, maybe it's a rock band that's working with Diana Ross. I didn't think it was Diana Ross. They said, no, it's Diana Ross. I'm like, so I bought it. And so when you bought it, tell us.
I I was in Las Vegas and I loved the album.
But
As
stay
soon as I
Ross,
heard That's How You Start Over,
okay.
I loved the sound of it and the feel of it, and I thought it was going to be huge. And once again, I'm in the minority because I thought, how could Up Front not be a huge hit?
I
Up
agree.
Front to me it had Ray Parker Jr. It sounded like that he was so hot at that time with that kind of sound. I thought the lyric was kind of cool, and it was
Bodysuit that she
kind of
wore
rock.
went to work, any of those bodysuits she wore and during that tour because it was all about the work that body. It was all thin and the missing parts and all that. They would have worked in a music video. Like it just wow, it was totally yeah. So up front would be your choice.
Up Front, I think if that album had led with like if Up Front had come out just prior to the album coming out, maybe
Yeah. Because that
I
was
think
one of
it would
those
have.
weird albums that the album came out uh in June, and then the single Pieces of Ice came out later in the month. Like it was like the album pre
I thought they were simultaneous. I didn't
oh, it's
know.
July 17th. The single Pieces of Ice came out, but the album came out earlier. And I could be mixing it up, but like it's like the album came out first, then the single Pieces of
Well,
Ice.
Well, for
Where
me in
I
Las
Love Go
Vegas,
came out, just gonna let you know, Where I Love Go came out June 17th, 1964. What was the other song that came out? Pieces of Ice came out June 17th, 1983. And then Thank You came June 17th, Where Did Our Love Go? 64. June 17th, Pieces of Ice, that single came out, and then June 17th, Thank You was streamable into 2021. So those are facts in the hard drive.
I believe you. I
And
just remember seeing them at the same, when I went to the Tower Records in Las Vegas,
Mhm.
I saw the single and the album at the same time.
What did you think? The B-side was Still in Love, and I thought I preferred that over Pieces of Ice.
Well, Still in Love was the B side. It
Two,
wasn't, no, it wasn't the B side of Pieces of Ice.
it was.
No, Still in Love wasn't a B side until, wait a minute.
Well, for the lack of, I don't want to term Timothy Pal or Timothy Red, but it really was the B-side to Pieces of Ice on June 17th. Uh, Still in Love was the B-side to Pieces of Ice. Okay.
Wait a minute. I
Okay.
no, no. I want me to grab the single,
Well,
have it handy.
this could be a coastal disagreement because my Eaten Alive was I'm Watching You, right? But in terms of like, this could be like in Vegas, maybe it was a different B-side.
It seems to me that Pieces of Ice had an instrumental even on the B side. I'm
Weird.
so curious now. I want to, it's like,
Oh, you have to go.
when we're done, I
Break.
got to grab, because
No,
the
no,
single
no.
was right in the next room.
We're taking a break and you're gonna get your single and I'm gonna show you like we have to do this. Okay,
Okay.
break time, hammer time. We are back. So
You
in
know
my
what?
box,
You know why you're absolutely, the reason I was confused, because I was thinking the same album. I thought, no, my head was thinking the Silk Electric album. And I thought, no, because Still in Love, I remember thinking should have been a single, but you're right.
I
Pieces
thought
of
Still in
Ice,
Love was
Still in
much
Love.
better than Pieces of Ice, the A side. And I listened to Still in Love a lot. And I really a photograph I had misplaced. Now she says the diction is incredible. It's just a brilliant song, and I'm hoping that you could mix it someday, and we could appreciate the brilliance more because "Still in Love" is a great song. It was the B-side to Pieces of Ice, but interestingly enough, in the Cashbox book and the 45 that I gave to Dustin, Pieces of Ice, it's Still in Love. But it's very possible, just like my Eaten Alive B-side was I'm Watching You, and they flipped the label is wrong in the East Coast. I bought mine in Rochester, New York, where Linda Stefano lives. But in the East Coast, they had the rock version of Eaten Alive. And according to Cashbox, the B-side of Eaten Alive is a different mix of Eaten Alive, which is what you had. And
Right.
also Friend to Friend was the B-side to I'm Coming Out, the second pressing, but the first pressing was a
Give up.
different from Give Up, which actually should have been a single
Yeah,
because
I think that's why they pulled it.
yeah,
I think that they felt they were wasting it, as the B side, and it should
clearly.
have. And I Give Up was one of those ones that I thought from the very beginning. As soon as I heard that one too, I thought that sounded like a single to me.
So you were in like your peak of everything during the peak of Diana as a solo artist with the big 80s, the going from superstar to superstar with the RCA years. When Diana came out, the album with the jeans and t-shirt, they also didn't release a single right away. What was your go-to song on Diana from 1980? Number two, number one on the R&B charts for 8 weeks.
Yeah, Give Up.
So Give Up was your
I liked her vocal performance a lot on Give Up. I thought a lot of the vocals on that album were like Upside Down was a really cool vocal, but it was very laid back, and it worked.
very hard to sing. Have you ever
Yeah.
tried to sing Upside Down? No one can do it but Diana Ross. Like Tom Jones and Dusty Springfield sang it on like as their special, and I was like, stop, it's
I
horrible. Like
think, and yet when people listen, that's what I mean about her vocally. You listen to things and think, well, that's just the easiest thing in the world.
it's not.
But it's the nuances and it's all the stuff she does with it that I wish I could think of, you probably know this because you know everything. There was a really popular female artist who said, "You think Diana Ross songs are easy until you try to sing one."
Right.
I don't remember who that was, but it was somebody big, a more contemporary person.
Well, I'm not going to put my money on it, but I think it was Alicia Keys that said it, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Okay. Not that I have any money to put on it, but moving into our questions in terms of the the Diana album with Upside Down, I'm Coming Out, My Old Piano. There's like there's is there an is there a Diana Ross album that you just don't listen to? It just doesn't register with you, George.
Uh, no. I mean, I wasn't so crazy about the new songs on the box set.
Reverend
I don't
Diane,
care much. I mean, I didn't care much for "It's a Wonderful Life" or
let's
"Back to
make
the Future."
Back to the Future. Yeah, this should have been Back to the Vaults. Yeah, I agree.
I think those were kind of throwaways. I thought the ballads were not "Your Love." I thought was a good song, and "Best Years of My Life" was a good song also. But that the others seemed like filler to me.
Mhm.
I liked "Promise Me You'll Try," which was in Japan. I thought that would have been a nice commercial song for her to have out in the U.S. I'm
I
sorry
thought
that didn't
Your
do
Love was
something.
also a very good record from, I think that was their best of the 90s, the 96 song in The Ones You Love, which kind of probably recorded in the same lump with Until We Meet Again. It was the same, it was a Taylor Danes producer that did
Yeah, I love that.
Promise Me You'll Try and uh, Until We Meet Again from the Every Day's a New Day album. And I've come to appreciate that album a lot more than I did when it came out. I
Yes,
really
me too.
It's brilliant. And I don't know why it didn't resonate with me at the time, but I really think it's a powerful album. So Legacy in the Making, number 6. Which, in your opinion, George, what is the Diana Ross's most significant contribution to, we'll just say humanity?
Wow.
Humanity. Your humanity.
I think that she, I hate to do it in terms of color, but
Okay, but
I think she is the first major superstar of color who crossed all mediums.
mhm,
Uh, I think she was ahead of her time and magnificent and should have won an Academy Award. And I just don't think anybody was ever that popular. Beautiful, a model, a singer, an actress.
fashion designer.
Yeah. And
And a producer, a songwriter. She hosted the Oscars in 1974. That's a first. I mean,
right.
there's so many firsts, and like just I have to say, like Lady Sings the Blues was number 1 in the box office in the United States of America for 5 non-consecutive weeks. That's
Yes, I heard you talking about that with Andy.
crazy. I mean, it's not crazy, but it's possible. And someone like Diane Carroll probably didn't think it was possible. No one did. But I'm sure Diana did. I know it. It's so cool. And that whole idea that it doesn't matter what you are, it's what you do. And I think that gives a lot of people a lot of strength. So I like your answer. That's a great answer. There's no wrong answers here. Star 80 question number 7. I have no idea what you're going to say. But the dream duet. Now, this duet could be produced by George Solomon, Kevin Reeves, and Andy Scarrow, with a little Joe thrown in. It could be like a fantasy musical collaboration with artificial intelligence. I was surprised that Michael Musto wanted Listen with Florence Ballard with AI, and Diana Ross with AI. But what living or not living? Or living, and giving, and loving. What would be the ultimate Diana Ross duet that you would produce or just manifest by just putting it out there?
Oh, I'd make one with George Solomon.
I knew it finally. Yes. song would it?
No, that's a tough answer.
Well, no, I was hoping. What? No, no. Let's go with George Solomon duet with Diana Ross. She would have the first spelling. It would be Diana Ross and George Solomon. So it wouldn't be with. It wouldn't be featuring. It would be Diana Ross and George Solomon. Okay, what song?
well, I got to have that fantasy in Dream
Yeah,
Street
you
with
did.
Remember Me. That's Andy talked about that.
Is there footage of that?
Yeah, there is.
Is it on YouTube?
No,
So I have a
I
homework
think
assignment.
I mean, we have VHS tapes of it. I
Will you
think
do
Andy
this
might
for
have
me?
put it on a
I can
DVD
do
for me.
it. I can do it.
Huh?
You got to do it.
Okay,
Time,
yeah,
there's
there's,
no time to the present. Do it before the
yeah,
80s.
yeah. It's
So
interesting. I haven't watched it for a very long time.
Remember Me by Diana Ross and George Solomon, the Eric Krupper mix. Yeah, that could
Yeah,
work.
I would love it. But I'd also like to hear. I thought Elton John would have been a good idea. She has mentioned that she, you know, maybe would have liked to have done something with Elton.
Well, there's still time, right? Possibly,
I
maybe.
agree. I don't know why she doesn't do more. At the time of Eaten Alive, she told me that Barry Gibb asked her, "Who do you want to duet with?" And she said, I really wasn't into duets at the time. I didn't feel like doing any at the time.
Mm.
You know, because
Well,
I would have thought, like on Barbara's Hour, I thought maybe there would have been something with Barry Gibb, or she.
there was a duet with Bear at the Bee Gees. I mean, that was like I think from all of those that the era where it was Dionne Warwick, Kenny Rogers, Barbra Streisand, Diana Ross when they produced uh albums when Barry became the producer. I think of the backgrounds on Eaten Alive that it's very
Yeah,
beautiful.
with Michael and Barry, those vocals are very present. They're almost like duets, some of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So uh I just want to say if I've missed anything with in terms of the questions here. Well, this has been an unexpected pleasure talking to you in this way, having it on the record. I want to thank you again and again. I think fans around the planet that either know you or don't know you will now know you because possibly they come across this YouTube or this whatever this is, Star 80, a celebration of 80 gowns, $80 in 80 years, leading up to Diana Ross's 80th birthday. If you were to, just say that this magical thing happened where we manifested that Diana Ross of all the 80 episodes, which I'm hoping to do, I'm not sure if I know I could do it, but I don't think people are wanting to talk about Diana Ross 80 people, but maybe. So that's my idea and that's my hope. What would you want to say to Diana Ross if she watches your video? Like she's just gonna skip all the way to just all the way to you, like at like whatever how long this is. What would you want to say to
It,
Diane?
it would be probably what I already got to say to her,
Okay. And just repeat that.
which would be thank you. I mean, she is the tapestry of my life. I mean, that for so many of us, it's hard to imagine. I think she gets a little embarrassed by it
Hmm.
when people tell her just how much she has meant to them and how much her music has meant to them. So it would be once again, thank you for I feel like singing the Golden Girls theme instead.
I
Yeah, it would
thank you
be.
for being for my muse. Thank
Yeah,
you for being
thank you for making a huge part of my life very exciting.
yeah, well, I definitely think it's very exciting. I'm so glad you were you gave us some insight on some of the productions that you've done. And there's just such an endless list of expanded things and
Oh,
lost.
we could have talked forever about the expanded editions alone with, with
Right, right.
Andy and
So
then with Joe at Real
on
God Music.
this CD that came out in 87, November of 1987, was there any particular song in this 27 track CD that was like,
Oh, there was something about Stormy I liked, and
yeah.
I thought Stormy should have made it out to him, and I thought going all the way to True True Love was fun. It was kind of had a vibe of The Happening.
Mhm.
I
And did you make the connection with Fancy Passes to that segue into Lady Sings the Blues? Well, I
I
think
bet, yes, I did. Because
they would say they popped
and
time.
there's so many versions of Fancy Passes. I think there's even another version that we haven't put out yet.
Really? What
Yeah,
about too hurt to cry and too much in love to say goodbye?
I thought
Original.
that was real catchy.
Pardon me?
That was real catchy.
That's my choice cut. I thought too hurt to cry and too much in love to say goodbye was fun. And you really hear Flo and Mary in the background. And this picture always made me so happy. It was like not it just I love the I just love that stitch like the whole art direction of this is like it had a little bit of information that gave enough background with the limited budget that you had. And it just has, I just love this picture because this is where you like Diana Ross and the Supremes. I'm assuming this was when they were filming Tarzan in Mexico
Yeah.
with that dreamy.
I thought Cindy should be included, Florence on the cover, and I thought there should be something with Cindy. And back then they didn't give us, it's like with Greatest Hits and Rare Classics, you couldn't have a booklet. They allowed like one paragraph and one other picture.
Yeah. Well, just show the people at home if they're watching. Like this is all we got. But boy, did
Yeah.
I get it, man. I read every word. If you can quiz me on this, I could like reproduce this. If it's lost, it's not. It's here.
Oh, this might surprise you, but I heard you say something with Andy. You talked about the Andantes a bit.
I call them the Sublimes.
Yeah.
They're Ross and the Sublimes. The Andantes are on a lot of the tracks on this CD, correct?
Yes. But you mentioned Who Could Ever Doubt My Love? That's Mary and Florence.
Really? Well,
That
they
is
sound
Mary and
like the
Florence.
Sublimes, not like the Andantes. They sound more
No,
like
I can hear why you would think that, but when you break it down and just listen to the multi and listen to only the voices in the back, that is Mary and Florence.
really. But the Andantes are on the background of My Guy by Mary Wells.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
I, as a kid, thought, oh, that's got to be Diana, Mary, and Flo. That's totally the Supremes. And they were like, and then I learned that it wasn't because we didn't have liner notes. We just had our ears. And so interesting, Who Could Ever Doubt My Love is not by the Sublimes or the Andantes. It's really the Supremes.
It's the Supremes, definitely.
This musical mystery, is Florence not on? I know the answer, but is Florence not on My World? That's my favorite Supreme song, My
No,
World.
Florence is definitely on My World Is Empty Without You.
Why don't we hear Florence on Where'd Our Love Go? I don't hear Florence on Where'd Our Love Go. I hear Mary. I don't hear Flo.
I think that was one of the ones where Florence stood back more.
Used to been in Canada, Windsor,
Yeah,
because
you can
I
tell that
don't.
when you listen to the German version, where you can hear Florence, you can hear what it would have sounded like if Florence had been more present. And when they sang that live, it sounded nothing like the record
No.
because Florence was so present on the live version.
Well, I'm going to listen to the German version of Where'd Our Love Go after we end this conversation. I can't thank you enough and enough and enough for doing this. This is so much fun. And it was. And so happy birthday, Diana, and happy birthday, all friends who celebrate Diana's birthday on March 26th. Are you doing anything special for Diana Ross's birthday?
Thanks, Timmy, for doing this.
Well, you're welcome. And who should we nominate to go next? Do you think Sherry would do this?
I don't know. She might. It's possible. I'm going to see her.
Sure.
She's playing at the Catalina Club.
Ask her. I'll do share. I'll do all the flows at once. We can do it all together.
Okay, I'll ask her.
Really dressed up. Yeah.
All right. Take care, Timmy. Thank you.
Be good. Bye.